You look at me and cry. Everything hurts. I hold you and whisper, but everything can heal. Do these words make your heart feel heavy of hope? Do you feel guilt, melancholy, sympathy? This poem was written by the brave 25-year-old poet Rupi Kaur. She writes poems of love, of passion, of pain, and of healing. And it's a courageous expression of genuine and authentic human feeling, human comprehension, and human reason. Yes, it is short and moving, but it embodies the human condition in just a few words. And this is the art of poetry. Now, for many of you, when you hear the word poetry, perhaps you feel tense, dreading the fact you're about to sit through a speech reminiscent of the countless amount of hours you spent annotating Macbeth or having to memorize classic pieces from Robert Frost. It could be that you feel it's dull, out of date, useless, and you're actively trying to avoid it. But shouldn't it actually be something we nurture? Because the truth is, this expressive, emotional, and rich form of literature can hold profound relevance and meaning for us all. Poetry has the power to change lives, our lives. Now, human behavior is driven by the basic emotions: anger, joy, worry, fear, and grief, the good and the bad. Truth is, emotions do define us all, although it is the action of expressing these raw emotions that can be difficult at times. And for many, it's something that takes a certain willingness and strength. But it is through poetry in particular that can be used to reflect and understand the deepest of emotions and thoughts. Where the denotation of the word poetry is quite literally work in which special intensity is given to the expression of feelings and ideas by the use of distinctive style and rhyme. And to English poet Matthew Arnold, poetry is simply the most beautiful, impressive, and widely effective mode of saying things. When American poet Billy Collins was asked the question, "Why does poetry still matter?" he responded by saying, "Poetry is incontestably the history of the human emotion." And I couldn't agree more. Poetry as verbal art also has a history of therapeutic use. According to the National Association for Poetry Therapy, the very first poetry therapist was a Roman physician called Cyrannus in the 1st century, who actually prescribed poems of tragedy to manic patients and ones of comedy to those who were depressed. Here, it was first used as a tool for emotional healing and has been carried forward to poetry therapy today, being practiced by learned psychologists, counselors, and social workers, such as Dr. Rafael Campo, professor of medicine at Harvard University. He states that he frequently uses poetry in his practice, offering therapy groups and including poems such as At the Cancer Clinic, where the writer, Ted Kruser, describes a slow procession of an ill woman and 2 others to an examining room where a smiling nurse is waiting for them. Think of it like this: poets that are able to bring out the emotions and feelings of others in their words, maybe helping to relieve the mental anguish of life's inevitable confusion with soulful verses, allowing us to feel empathy and a sense of belonging. And this should truly add value for humankind. It was also reported by the UK's Daily Telegraph, following research on the human brain, that when reading poetry, the brain engaged in an area called autobiographical memory, which shows the reader will subconsciously relate the poetry to personal experience. These studies, both in the US and the UK, show that undeniably, both reading and writing poetry has a profound impact in relation to personal realization, where we may find common ground with others, gaining comfort in their experience, and writing poems to actualize emotions we're struggling to handle. And poetry, through its humility, serves humanity. And just as the ancient philosopher Atticus had said, poetry is what happens when your mind stops working, and for a moment, all you do is feel. 3 months ago, I lost my nan to cancer. She was a remarkable woman, a best friend really, kind, caring, selfless, strong, and with a passion for music, poetry, and literature as I do. She gave me everything, love, support, and constantly inspired me to be courageous and to always follow the things I love. I wasn't mentally prepared to hear such news, waiting at the airport to board the plane to visit her 10,000 kilometers away. And to be completely honest with you all, it was the worst I've ever felt. It was after this loss that I felt grief, and with it came denial and sadness, feelings I couldn't exactly cope with. I didn't know how to express myself, and I just couldn't find the words. So I took out my pen, and I turned to poetry. This is a piece I wrote after hearing the news, and I called it Sunshine. I am here, restless and empty, and there is simply nothing more I can do but think of you. This is what broken feels like. And this piece, a happier one, I called together to remember a very special shared moment. The perfect night was one with you, with mulled biscuits and overly sweet chamomile tea, singing classics until we could harmonize. One where our laughter would echo through the streets of Barnet until the rise of morning. In this situation, poetry allowed me to process the way I was feeling, the emotions I was fearful of giving voice to, because the last thing I wanted to be was weak. It was in this time where poetry gave me a sense of comfort and hope. And this is the beauty of it. It's now that I ask you to look inside yourselves. Have you ever felt moved reading a poem? Have you ever read the words of a poet and in them seen your own reflection and felt warmed as a result? Here, I urge you all to find, appreciate, and most importantly, to understand that poetry truly does matter. It is a platform that has allowed the most exceptional of poets, Sylvia Plath, Edgar Allan Poe, Maya Angelou, Rupi Kaur, to capture and share intense human experience, creating poems heavy with meaning and appreciated by millions. And all of us are made up of soul, passion, feeling. So I challenge you to create poems that preserve the goodness, the memories, the joy, and even to express the tragedy, the pain, the loss. And if you have difficulty starting, ask yourself a few simple questions. What scares you? What do you find beautiful? What makes you happy? What makes you brave? What pains you? Do not be fearful to fall deeper into desires, thoughts, and memories you want to express with poetic language, metaphors, symbolism, imagery, the freeing style poetry has. Push yourself to read poems that share the good and the bad, the living and the being. See, it's not dull, but instead the most powerful of the arts, one that can articulate all elements of life in just a few words. And just as English teacher John Keating, played by Robin Williams, so eloquently said in the film Dead Poet Society, is that poetry, beauty, love, romance, these are what we stay alive for. Thank you.